welcome to the second series of Tokyo College's The Salon, which we started last autumn to introduce some prominent professors from the University of Tokyo to the public. And my name is Naoko Shimazu, and I'm professor at Tokyo College, and I'm a historian. So today's guest is Professor SAHASHI Ryo. Welcome, Professor Ryo.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I could have. And so Professor SAHASHI is an international relations specialist who has a regional focus on East Asia. And he is with the Department of Pan-Asian Studies at the Institute for Advanced Studies on Asia within the University of Tokyo. And he is a prolific author who has written huge amounts of things in both English and Japanese. And he has published in peer-reviewed journals, English language peer-reviewed journals such as Pacific Affairs, Contemporary Politics, Journal of Contemporary China, and so on. And he also contributes regularly to NHK, which is Japan's broadcasting corporation, and Nikkei, Asahi newspaper, as well as Mainichi and other major outlets. He is a graduate of the International Christian University, where he got his BA, and then he obtained his PhD from the Graduate School for Law and Politics at the University of Tokyo. And he's also studied at the Department of Political Science in the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So, welcome to the Salon. And what we like asking here is, we like to ask you, how did you become, what made you interested in the international relations of East Asia to the extent that you became an academic specializing in this subject?
So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this salon. I'm not prominent specialist on international relations, but it is my great honor to be here with you today. So why did I start to study international politics? It is a very difficult question, but also easy question, because I graduated from university on bachelor undergraduate program in 2002. So just after September 11. So when I started University of Illinois, it was actually until May 2001. So after coming back to Japan, I suddenly heard the news of September 11, the terrorist attack on World Trade Center and also Pentagon. And it shocked me a lot. And actually, before it happened, I thought I would become politicians, or at least aides to politicians, in Nagatacho, kind of power center in Tokyo politics. And actually, I got some really good job offer from some institution. But after watching September 11 and also the United States and other countries' retaliation to Afghanistan, I really wanted to study more. So I also applied to graduate school of law and politics here. So I decided, because I got acceptance letter already, so I decided to switch my future path. So I decided to go graduate school first. So I entered the master program here in University of Tokyo in 2002. And actually, during 2 years, I started to be interested in international politics because, I found interesting topics. It is a Sino-American relationship. That time, actually, I studied Chinese a little bit, helped by my Chinese friend, and also I spent a lot of time in Hong Kong and also in China. So I had more interest, the future of China, but also I started to wonder how will become the relationship between U.S. and China. And then I finally encountered one very interesting thesis article, which was on the international security. And that article was about the episode of American reaction to Chinese nuclear program in 1964. And that article, written by Bill Barr, was really well written, and it revealed how the United States thought very seriously about Chinese nuclear programs, and actually they even prepared some secret plan to bomb Chinese nuclear facilities by spying agents. But of course they gave up that idea. But what interested me so much is, this is something I wanted to know, or this is something I want to know more. This is something maybe I can write in better way. I was very young, so I thought I could write in a more beautiful manner. So I decided to write my master's thesis. And then somehow I got also really good offer from the scholarship foundation. So I decided to go PhD program. And then after that, I don't know why, I still keep studying here. But that is a story I had in my early 20s.
I think that sort of experience, this very individual, personalized experience of how one reacts to major global events, such as 9/11 in your case. Because in my case, it was the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when I was living in the Middle East, in Doha, Qatar. And our house was right sort of behind the American embassy. And of course, there was this shock on news. We were listening to BBC News actually in Doha, and that that there was this revolution happening in Iran. And then suddenly, I saw like Qatari state tanks rolling in to protect the American embassy. And this was really, I think our house was closest to the American embassy. And so we were told not to use the rooms facing that side and so on. And I just thought it was extraordinary that an event that was happening in Iran, in Tehran at the time, was actually having a direct impact on our lives in Doha. And particularly in my bedroom, facing the American embassy. And from that time onwards, I really felt that I had to understand this, this international relations. And so I actually studied international relations. I don't know if you know this, but all my degrees are in IR. And I became a historian, basically because of the methodology I used to do my PhD dissertation at Oxford, which was an international history methodology. And I think you probably have a similar kind of trajectory, because I see that although you're an international relations scholar, you use archival research technique too, don't you?
Yeah.
So you're kind of a secret historian, I'm hoping.
Yeah, it is very funny because first of all, international events, made a really big impact on the personal, I can say, inquiry into the history or kind of academic research. So it is very interesting things. But secondary, yes, I'm a kind of diplomatic historian because in my PhD program, what I learned was mostly diplomatic history. Of course, I also studied about international law and also theory of international politics. But somehow, in my time, in my generation, it was very popular to write dissertation, even for political science, but to employ the methodology of diplomatic history. So it was very popular at that time, in Japan. So I, finally decided my topic. It was American strategy to China and also to Taiwan during the Cold War. And it was very fun, but finally I published my dissertation into a book, but it took, I think, 15 years. So I think it was too long journey. But, yeah.
Yes, we all have our own long journeys in academic life. So I'd like to kind of ask you about you and your experiences abroad, because you have spent on quite a few occasions either studying, in the first case maybe the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign experience, and then subsequently you have had sort of fellowships, visiting associate professorship at Stanford in the Walter Shorenstein Asia Pacific Research Center, and you were also in Mexico as Yoshida Shigeru Chair at the Instituto Tecnológico Autónomo de Mexico, and I think you also said you were in Woodrow Wilson Center as well. So would you kind of tell us what is it that do these international experiences have on you, like impact-wise, in terms of how you think about what you do, research-wise?
Yeah, I traveled a lot and also had the opportunity to live abroad many times. As you said, I was in the United States, I think 3 times. And also I did my postdoctoral studies in Australia National University. And it was a little, they are really not long, short, but I also taught some coursework in ITAM, in Mexico, and also in Brazil. And I recently came back from Seoul National University. I spent less than a year in Seoul National University, and it was also very good. So I think, of course, on the one hand, to live abroad, to do research is a really good excuse, because to live abroad is simply fun, right? And it is our joy, right, to live in a very new environment and to meet new people, to learn local language. And to go, like a local museum, and also to learn the history of that country. So everything was so fun. So it is a really big advantage as academia, right, to have such opportunity. But at the same time, as you said, I really learned a lot from my own experience, especially when I was in Stanford. I was just an associate professor in a different university in Japan, and I got a 1-year sabbatical in Stanford. But that experience was really huge for me because, in Stanford, every day I can learn something new because many events, many lectures, and many opportunities we had. And actually, my neighbors, including the Takeo Hoshi, now the director of Tokyo College. He was my, my colleague at that time. And also I was with Masa Aoki, the very famous Japanese economist at the time. And his room was next to me. So I talk and we discuss every day. And, we attended the same seminar together. And, after listening to the lecture, we came back to the room, chatting about that talk, and everything was so fascinating, right? So, because to teach and make a research in university as a professor, we simply very busy and cannot focus only on research, or cannot have a kind of mindset, we want to know more, right? We are simply very busy. But when I was in Stanford, of course, some professors are having many class to teach and many things to do, but they try to learn more, try to be so much provocative to colleagues or peers, right? So I think, that atmosphere, maybe it's a real atmosphere of academia, but that atmosphere changed me a lot. So after coming back from Stanford, actually first things I did is to complete my book from dissertation. And because I was so much motivated, so just within a half month, I can write a book. It was very amazing for me.
It's amazing, yes.
Yeah, but even after that, I was so much, how can I say, very energetic, even now. So, because I learned what I can appreciate, in my academic life. So I think my Stanford experience was a life-changing experience.
That's really interesting because, perhaps in some sense, I'm quite similar to you. Because for me, this kind of, experience of meeting different people in a different environment matters a lot. It becomes a very important stimulus for leading to new kinds of thinking or just being in a different academic culture. Because obviously you know the Japanese academic culture very well, and being, for example, at Stanford or ANU or I was imagining Mexico must have been also quite interesting, or Brazil, that because each academic culture in some sense has its own kind of peculiarities and the way they operate, and I think moving from one context to another would give you very interesting insights into how ideas are formed or how they emerge. And I completely agree with you. This kind of this tension in thinking about things is actually very kind of fundamental to having new ideas. So can I just ask you about your Japanese publications, because this is an English language dissemination, and I just want our audience to have a chance of understanding at least the arguments of your main Japanese publications. So if you like, I know we have them on there on the shelf behind you, and if you like to tell us but I know that Beichu tide is right. The Sino-American confrontation received a lot of reviews too. So if you like to.
Yeah. So this one in the very green and white cover, is my recent publication. It was published in 2021 from Chuko, publisher in Japan. And the title is, as Professor Shimazu said, US-China Rivalry. And what I describe in that book is a kind of brief history of US-China from 1970, after rapprochement, reconciliation, to today. And now I think many people start to understand why the United States changed its strategy or attitude to China. It is very strategic, and it is a kind of fear to China, because the United States was being catch up by China. But what I describe and analyze in my book is kind of the long history, why United States tried to believe China and support China and Chinese modernization. And they said it's a policy of engagement, right? But not only engaged to China, but actually United States supported China for its modernization. So I try to unpack why the United States could believe the future of China last 45 years or so. And then like last 10 years, United States changed its discourse and policies so much toward China, and then China also started to change its behavior to United States. So it's a kind of, say, a relationship of distrust or mistrust between two. And in my book, I try to argue why United States finally gave up its expectation on the future of China, and why United States changed its diplomacy and security policy to China 180 degree, right? So I describe the kind of government policy, but the real kind of substance of my book is I try to analyze the kind of policy making process in the United States, but not only in the government, but also many sectors, like kind of like Christian church or industrial lobbying people, and also media and kind of policy planners inside and outside of the government, and also military force. So that was a book I recently wrote.
So what would you say, or first of all, when and what made the United States change so sort of radically? Its stance towards China, which obviously affected its policy towards China too.
Yeah, it is around 2015. Yeah, some people say it might be 2014, and some people say, oh no, it should be after the Trump administration came to White House. But I think, analytically, we can say Obama administration started to change their belief on China, not only perception but also policies. They start to change from 2015. And why? Because they finally started to know, the kind of the real character of Xi Jinping, and also the China or Chinese policies will not satisfy the U.S. expectation. Like China will be very cooperative to international society. China will be more market-based economy. China will be more, how can I say, well managed in politics. So such a kind of belief or expectation on the future of China couldn't be supported by the first 2 years of Xi Jinping's, right? So they finally had to change their belief on China. And to make matters worse, around 2015, the Chinese power, especially in the technology power, start to catch up with the United States in many aspects. So, mistrust on the future of China, and then the fear on Chinese power. So these two factors, marriage, made a kind of, combination around 2015. So Obama administration started to change not only its policy to China, but also its alliance policy, like to Japan and other countries. And then, but only less than 2 years, they didn't have enough time. So we couldn't feel, or Obama administration changed its strategy radically, but actually it changed, substantially. And then Trump administration came in, and they changed the attitude, behavior, policy to China so radically. So now Biden administration simply kind of geared up its China policy. So I think most of the things started from 2015.
Well, it's very interesting because, if you go back, let's say, more than 100 years ago, there was that period when the United States was really wishing and backing this idea of a new China. This is before the Paris Peace Conference, before the First World War, and that sort of the sense of, and obviously after the Republican Revolution of 1911. So that was, in some sense, also a period of great hope for on the part of the United States in its sort of expectations of how China could become, rather than how China did actually become. And so it's kind of interesting, isn't it? If you look at the 20th century, then China, because China is such a kind of, enormous existence in the world, geopolitics, that whatever hopes you pin on China can actually, be, you might feel betrayed by China, you might feel thwarted, you might feel encouraged by China, but it's that sort of thing of China as being almost like a vehicle of one's own reflection as a country on how you want China to be. That seems to have governed quite a lot of. At least the United States, and I'm sure the other countries too, in that sense. Because I was also thinking about the 19th century idea of the myth of the China market. When the British were hoping that China could buy up all the Lancashire cotton, that kind of that massive, vast market that supposed to have existed in China, and the access to it obviously kind of encouraged this imperial competition in China. But yeah, that, you know, the existence of China, whether China does anything or not, we still actually seem to have, you know, pinned some ideas onto China as a you know, as a power or as a culture, as civilization in geopolitical terms.
I think, you know, yeah, I ideally agree with your point, and I, you know, ideally think, you know, this is not the kind of the direct reaction to what you said, but you know, after listening to your talk, I really think, you know, optimism is really important to understand international politics. I think, you know, now many people said, you know, last half century, you know, United States was misguided, and then to make China bigger and bigger, right? They say, you know, they are betrayed by China, you know. So because even though American people, Japanese people, European people try to help China, Chinese modernization, but they betrayed us. So such thesis, such hypothesis or thesis are now very popular, right, among conservative people. And they said optimism was useless, and we have to be very pessimistic, right? And now, you know, they are really busy in making a kind of alliance structure, and also they try to use kind of like, say, economic security method to weaken a Chinese growth base, and they try to invest more to United States and its allies. And they say this is a must they have to do, because China have to change, but we cannot do it from outside. So we have to be more pessimistic about the future of China. But having said that, optimism is really important, because you know, when we look back the history, optimism always changed the world, change international society into the better way. And even to China, I strongly believe, you know, optimism helped the collaboration between Chinese people and, you know, the rest of the world people. And Chinese people and we, you know, the rest of the world people actually got a lot of merit from the very cooperative moment in last half century. So, but you know, people are always try to say, some people always try to say, no, optimism cannot help us. Now look the reality, pessimism should be applied, right? But you know, optimism always foster kind of communications, diplomacy, or, you know, rule making, norm setting, you know, in international society. But you know, after seeing some negative things, they gave up optimistic view at all, right? And they, you know, made a kind of U-turn to very pessimistic worldview. So I think, you know, but you know, the power of optimism shouldn't be kind of, you know, gave up, right? You know, this is what we also have to learn from the history, right? Because everybody try to believe, you know, tomorrow world is better, so we can team up and we can go further and we can talk, even though we have some difference. But recently, this is actually my recent concern and also research topic is international order start to be kind of, say, scrapped by the, you know, change of balance of power, but also the increasing distrust among great powers. But to make a real, stable, peaceful international order, we really have to believe the optimism, right? But looking at the, you know, kind of the world today, many people, especially who try to speak out, they try to depend only on the pessimistic worldviews. So this is my concern.
I mean, the problem with pessimism is that it can only restrict, couldn't it? I mean, let's say if you have an optimistic view about things, then you actually try to connect with things and you try to make things sort of happen, which may not have happened before, but you hope it's going to happen for the better. Whereas with pessimism, to me, it seems like it's really about this sort of controlling as much as possible so that, it will not go in ways that you think it's going to go, which is, in your view, going to be the bad way, So can I ask you about, so you are obviously this big specialist on Sino-US relations, and in your kind of, the current state of how you understand this relationship, how does Russia come in? And also, what about Japan? And also Korea, because Korea is, about North and South Korea, and it's a very complicated kind of, it brings in this sort of, complicated contingencies into the way of understanding also in, how do you stabilize this kind of order in this part of the world? And I'll be very curious to hear your views on this.
Yeah, to think about the future of world order, I mean, like a kind of very big order, we really have to think very closely the future of Russia and also Russia-Ukrainian war. In that case, we really have to think, how can we put an end to the war in Ukraine, and how we can settle the situation in Ukraine, and also to make a kind of assurance, security assurance to Ukraine, even after war termination. So that will be the real key to think about the future of, say, worldwide international order. But at the same time, my recent focus is also the regional order. What I mean is Indo-Pacific order or East Asia order. I really don't care so much about the wording, Indo-Pacific or Asia-Pacific or East Asia here. But in this region, the balance of power start to change very radically. And the United States, of course, try to deter Chinese aggression to, say, to Taiwan, and also they try to engage militarily and economically, diplomatically to this region. But at the same time, the future power of China will be, still very big, very enormous. So, this is something new, in this region. We have two big powers. How about Japanese power? Japan's power is not like, the two superpowers, right? It is still one major power, but, not like a very decisive power in the region. And also we have South Korea, and also a very emerging country in ASEAN, and Australia and India also start to get involved to the regional order. So, what I recently think most is, how can these countries create the regional order, right? Maybe, in the past, after 1945, United States was very important. They had hub and spoke relationship with regional countries. I mean, it's a kind of a bilateral alliance system. United States was hub, core, and many countries functioned as, say, spoke. And China was, of course, in the very beginning outside of this system, but finally, made the approachment with United States after 1972. So, China also joined and stabilized the regional order. But now, this system not working well, right? And US and China start to grow a sense of rivalry between two. And many countries start to be, say, decoupled, right? Especially in Northeast Asia, decoupled by US alliance system. How about Southeast Asia? ASEAN are still united as under the ASEAN umbrella. But I don't think ASEAN can make a big contribution to stabilize the situation or to lead the discussion towards the future of East Asian-wide order. So I think, we really have to come up with some good ideas. How can we stabilize the situation, but also how can we recreate the regional order? Right? If not, the regional order, since 1945, will be simply collapsed. And then we are left with very kind of confrontation between two camps, American camp and China camp. And then, regional institutions will not work well. So we really have to create, at least we have to bring some new ideas, to recreate the regional orders. So, but, many people, as I said, now dominated by the idea of pessimism, and they don't believe the power of the future. So I think, now, actually I have very strong concerns about the future of this region. Yeah, and also, as you said, North Korea also is here to stay, right? So, if we don't have a, good imagination to recreate the order, I think this region in 1 or 2 decades will be in a very serious situation. So, and so for that sake, I strongly believe we really have to make a kind of big diplomatic, efforts, in this region.
Okay, so one final question. I know you're really running out of time, but do you have any? What's your view on the Indo-Pacific framework? I mean, is it in the light of what you've been discussing today? Is it a sort of useful, feasible, kind of framework to have in mind, or do you think it's there has to be one which is sort of more focused on Northeast Asia as a whole? I don't know what your views on this.
Yeah. It is actually a very interesting question, and even in academia, we sometimes discuss Indo-Pacific is good, or East Asia, or Asia Pacific. Like in policy world, we have a lot of confusion about the wording or regional concepts, conceptualization, and I think Indo-Pacific is a little bit charming and attractive idea, because with the word Indo-Pacific, we can imagine beyond, say, West Pacific. Right? It is very interesting because we are connected by the ocean. So, and even from the old history, India and Indian Ocean are well connected to this region. I mean, West Pacific. So, with the introduction of the concept of Indo-Pacific, we can say enlarge our imagination, right, towards the west, towards the Indian Ocean. So it means a lot, and also in a policy world, it means a lot because they want to have India in, say, regional organizations or military arrangements. Right? So it also makes sense for them, policymakers. But even in academia, Indo-Pacific sounds very terrific and attractive because it is one of the reality of this region. We are connected to Indian Ocean, but at the same time, I also think, should we give up the word East Asia or Asia Pacific? I don't think so. Especially East Asia is really attractive for me. East Asia here means at least Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia, right? And that area, these areas are actually really crucial to think about the future of this region. India might have some role, but the main roles, we can expect might be like China, and Japan, ASEAN, Korea, and also United States as a kind of extra regional power, right? So by the concept of East Asia, maybe we could focus more on the kind of the essence or essential part of the important part of the world. So and some people also support the Asia Pacific, but the negative side of the Asia Pacific is it naturally involves say east part of the Pacific, including some Latin American countries. So the discussion might be too big. So that might be some weakness of the concept of Asia Pacific. So I tend to like the concept of East Asia. That is the reason I put East Asia in many publication. But but that is because I personally believe East Asia is really say handy concept, handy very convenient concept.
Well, I think particularly if you kind of, as you have a larger conception of East Asia as including Northeast and Southeast Asia, it really is a very, not just handy, I think it's a very important concept that links Northeast and Southeast Asia together, which hasn't been done enough in the past. But anyway, I think unfortunately we have to end today's conversation. So thank you very, very much for a very interesting and insightful conversation. And we wish you all the best for a new vision of international order in East Asia. So
yes, thank you very much. I really don't know my talk will help somebody, but,
I'm sure.
but this is what I'm thinking now, and I really hope we can continue our discussion.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you.